how do you feel about whether or not this department in this moment can be trusted?
So first of all, if you want to talk about the trust with the police and black people, there's never been trust. All right, so that's number one. Number two is that if you look at the numbers, 75% of murders go unsolved. So obviously they're not doing their job, and they haven't been doing their job in years. But hopefully Superintendent Eddie Johnson can do something about the police culture. But if we're talking about violence, police isn't the answer. You could put 100,000 police officers on the street that will not reduce violence in the city of Chicago, because police are only there to react. They're only there to react. You have to put money into prevention. And right now, nobody has really said it, but his name is Rahm Emanuel. And this mayor that we have in the city of Chicago does not care about black people. And I'm gonna put that on the record. When you can invest $100 million into DePaul basketball arena when they can practice at the United Center for free, and $16.4 million into Uptown to build upscale apartments, when you can build these new bus stops we got now downtown, but walk in our neighborhoods and not a million is coming. When we walking past boarded up schools, boarded up houses, they knock it down with red X's with no plan to redevelop. Mental health facilities shut down. The unemployment rate is the highest in Chicago than it is around the country. When you want to talk about violence, you got to talk about the economics, not police.
Black man in America for the past 400 years has been like a boy in the white man's house, begging the white man for a job, for food, clothing, and shelter. And then after the white man provides him with all of these things, he turns around and has the nerve to get angry at the white man when the white man tries to control his life. How can people, a group of people such as our people, who own no factories, have equal job opportunities competing against a race that owns the factories? The only way the two can have equal job opportunities is if black people have factories as well as white people have factories. And then we can employ whites or we can employ blacks, just like they can employ whites or they can employ blacks. But as long as the factories are in the hands of the whites, the housing is in the hands of the whites, the school system is in the hands of the whites, you have a situation where the blacks are constantly begging the whites, can they use this or can they use that? That's not any kind of equality of opportunity, nor does it lend toward one's dignity.
About this new idea called thug life, which is a new kind of black power.
And when I say thug life, I mean that shit. Because these white folks see us as thugs. I don't care what y'all think. I don't care if you think you a lawyer, if you a man, if you an African American, if you whatever the fuck you think you are. We thugs and niggas to these motherfuckers. You know? And until we own some shit, I'ma call it like it is. How you gonna be a man and we starving? You know? And you can walk by 5 different houses, ain't a man in either one of them motherfuckers. How we gonna be a man? How we gonna be African Americans and we out here dying? We thugs and we niggas until we set this shit right. Trust me when I tell you that shit.
Thank you for bringing that up. I went to 3 chess championships when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Right. And I learned to play the game really good. And my father was the one that taught me about what you're talking about in terms of confronting the system. He said to me, I got a friend of mine who came from Eastern Europe, right? And he's at the college that I'm at, and he has 2 PhDs, and he's 24 years old. He goes, this guy is a fucking genius on paper. He goes, but he doesn't know how to play chess. He goes, could you beat him, Felipe? And I said, Dad, it's not a question of could I beat him? It's how you want me to beat him. Do you want me to let him play for a little while, then rip his pieces off the board? Do you want me to play to the end game and then beat him? Do you want me to make him feel like he's actually doing something and accomplishing something and then crush his dreams? He goes, that's exactly how the system sees you. You might be smarter, but they've been playing this game for so long. They know how to divide working class white people and working class black people and pit them against each other. Because when you have a problem, you got a problem. But when you got 2 problems, you put them together and let them solve each other. Hire one half of the poor to kill the other half. This is the thing that we're dealing with. So instead of actually dealing with the problems, it's not only black people that have been lied to about their history. Where in white people's American history is who fought for all the fact that there wouldn't be 10-year-olds working in a slave labor camp, right? Making a steel mill shit for the robber barons of this world. Who fought so that you would have an 8-hour day, and anytime somebody made you work more than that, you had to get paid? Who fought to say that your mom couldn't be fired for being pregnant? Is that filed under the commie history section of America? No, those are workers' rights, and those affected everybody. The problem is that they never were applied across the board towards people of all races and cultures. But it still stands that those workers still got fucked out of their jobs. They were eventually replaced, and they were eventually abandoned by the system. So when you look at it from that perspective, without doing the historical analysis and putting it into context, you'll always be opposed to one another without realizing that you have more in common than you do apart. And that's the problem, that people don't recognize that commonality, because we can talk about how racism is real, but race is a social construct. We're one human race, right? We have different phenotypes based upon where we're from. Sure. You know what I mean? There's less sun up there, more sun here. You know what I mean? People have a different hair based on the weather or the area, the temperament where they live.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's necessary to point out. We're one human race, and people have used the idea of that because they never want to discuss classism. That's the last thing on their fucking agenda.
I mean, we don't even need classism with racism. When you got racist white people that simply think they're better than you.
Because it protects class.
That's more convenient.
It makes people that are poor and being taken advantage of by the system think just for a second, man, at least I'm not as bad.
Exactly.
Yes.
But what about them poor white niggas that I call Trump supporters down south who are white, poor as shit, but still think they better than you?
Here's an interesting thing. If you ever look up Fred Hampton on YouTube, I'm not talking to you, I'm saying to people at home, you'll find he's in a meeting. And I saw this very interesting meeting. It was a movie called, I think it was Bastards of the Party, or it was a movie about the Black Panthers. And it showed how Fred Hampton had gone into these communities where there were poor working class white people. And one of the interesting things I saw is, to your point, there was a white guy that was standing next to Fred, and he had a black vest. And on the side of his vest was a Confederate flag, right? Mind you, Fred is a Black Panther, one of the most prominent ones. He wasn't railing on that for a second. He said, wait a minute, we can deal with these issues. But as white working class people that are being taken advantage of by the same corporations that are turning a blind eye and taking advantage of to us, if we unite, then we find more commonality amongst ourselves. I'm not saying that we'll ignore that. We can have a cultural discussion and a debate, which you'll probably lose, about the origin of that flag, about the what it actually means and what it signifies, right? But if we unite as working class people, we can force them to come to terms now with us, right? Because we have a unified front where you can't say, oh, I'm going to replace the white worker with the black worker when he goes on strike. No, I won't strike because that's my brother in arms, and I won't allow you to use me to pit against him. In the other way, I won't allow these people to be the brunt of a system being tested on me.
I saw that actually on the Black Panther documentary, but you know that's also why they really got rid of Martin Luther King Jr., because he was trying to put together the Poor People Movement,
March,
which was going to be the Poor People March, which was going to unite everybody of all colors, just poor and disenfranchised, on the Washington Monument. That would have changed society.
For someone, like I said before, they're terrified of a little white kid that's watching this program that will read Malcolm and say this person was against a fascist system. This person was against a broken system. They're afraid of their so-called white messiah, a white revolutionary person that stands for the working class people, that was willing to stand up to the system, a person that maybe was influenced by Tupac's music or heard something of mine or watched this show and said, you know what, this is bullshit. We have to fight against this. You know why? Because then they have a Kent State. Then they have something else that they have to take very, very seriously, because then they have someone who exemplifies and draws empathy from the majority of America to look at that and say, okay, well, now it's so obviously wrong that we have to take action to it.